Germany is Canada's largest export market in the European Union. It is also, of course, a strategically essential NATO ally. With us now on the ongoing ties between our two countries, we welcome, at the German embassy in our nation's capital, Sabine Sparwasser, Germany's ambassador to Canada, and in the Dovercourt Park neighborhood of Ontario's capital city, there's Yvonne Dentz. She's president and CEO of the Canadian-German Chamber of Industry and Commerce. And it's great to welcome you two onto TVO tonight. I just want to start by putting a bit of background in place for those who are perhaps less aware of the significance of the German-Canadian relationship, starting with the fact that nearly $24 billion worth of goods were traded last year between our two countries, and that's actually during a pandemic year. Germany is Canada's sixth largest trading partner worldwide and our largest export market in the European Union. Canadian exports to Germany in 2020 were worth nearly $6.5 billion. Our number one export to Germany is minerals, and we import more than $17 billion worth of goods from Germany. Our number one import is machinery, followed closely by automotive, and there are 700 German companies currently based in Canada. Now, Madam Ambassador, let me ask you a bit of a strange question to get started, because my suspicion is a lot of people don't know how deep the relationship between our two countries is. So is this a bit of an understated relationship that Canada and Germany have?
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. And you are so right. This is a very deep and very rich relationship based on a very like-minded kind of mindset that our two populations have. We also have deep roots. We have we have about 10% of Canadians who say they are actually of German origin. And we are countries that really like each other. Regularly, in all the opinion polls, it comes out that Canadians and Germans are very deeply attached to each other. Is there room to grow? Is there a lot of space to develop our relationship further in the current international context? I would definitely say there is.
Yvonne Dentz, what would you add to that in terms of whether you think we have a bit of an understated relationship between the two countries?
Maybe if you think about it as like an old married couple. We get along great, but once in a while, I think it would help to just sit back and look at each other and think, what else can we do together? Where can we cooperate even more?
Well, Yvonne, if we're an old married couple, what do we fight about?
There's very little we fight about. I think for the longest time, it was a former German arms dealer who fled to Canada and then was extradited. But that was the biggest spat that I'm aware of, and that dates decades back.
Oh, I remember that. You're talking about Karl-Heinz Schreiber, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a few decades back. Okay. Well, in which case, okay, Madam Ambassador, what values do you think Canada and Germany share nowadays?
Well, we are right now in a situation where we see a global shift of powers in the world. And I think Canadians and Germans are both very attached and very take it very seriously to see that we defend the liberal international rules-based order. This is one particular value. Canadians and Germans are very rules-oriented. We want order, we want peace, we want good governance. And I think these are really binding values. We also have the same kind of understanding of what government should do. I think we put high value on civility and on a society where everybody gets along, and we try and find consensus.
Let me, Yvonne Dentz, ask you whether I want to compare us in terms of the fact that we live next door to a very big country that we try hard to get along with, but don't always. And Germany lives next door to a very big country that it tries hard to get along with, but doesn't always. Do we have that in common, or am I making that up?
I think I wouldn't really say you're making it up. I don't think that would be fair. But I think Germany is more focused on the world and on international trade. So it values a trading relationship with the United States as much as Canada, And of course, it has strong ties to China as well and the neighbor Russia. I think what we do have in common is a sense of community. I think in both countries, there is an understanding that sometimes the solidarity and the community is more important than the individual. I think that's something we definitely share.
Ambassador, could I get you to weigh in on that in as much as would the Canadian-American relationship and the German-Russian relationship, would they be similar in some respects?
I don't think so. I think Germany's focus in the neighborhood is one that is on Europe. We know Russia is a big neighbor. It's an important neighbor, and we do want to find common ground with Russia. But it isn't the same kind of relationship at all that Canada has with the US, which is its largest partner. It's a best friend with a huge undefended border. I think there are huge differences. When it comes to Germany, I think our first focus is definitely the EU. But then when you go beyond it, our most important partners are our North American partners.
Well, maybe I should rephrase that a bit, Ambassador. Maybe I should say, when Donald Trump was president, it didn't feel like we were best friends with a very long undefended border. It felt like we were fighting all the time. In that case, would the German-Russian relationship be more like the Canadian-American one under Trump?
Well, even there, I think there are still very, very deep links between Canada and the US, and even at a time when the administration was more complicated for Canada, I think those ties prevailed and were very important. Still, you make a good point. It is important to get along with our neighbors. Russia has been a very complicated neighbor, but you also have to look at the comparative weight of those neighbors. And I mean, the United States is the superpower in every sense: technology, in economic weight, in military terms. And Russia is not in the same league, in particular not in economic terms.
No, you're quite right. I mean, I think Russia's economy is smaller than California's, so that's a very good point to keep things in perspective. Yvonne Dentz, let me ask you this. If you are advising German companies who want to set up business in Canada or do business in Canada, what do you tell them?
Don't be too German.
What does that mean?
You know, there is this, it's a stereotype, but it's true to a certain extent. Germans are known to be blunt and direct, and small talk might not be our biggest strength. So we tell German companies that are coming into the market here, go along with the small talk and don't open the door and start with your sales pitch. And maybe let loose a little bit and don't be afraid to share stories and just talk.
What does let loose a little bit mean?
Just be okay with being addressed by your first name. So in German, you still have a very formal way to address each other with Herr and Frau, like the French vous. And in North America, you just use your first name, which can be quite unusual for a German business person.
Ambassador, is that right? Are we a little bit too familiar for a typical German who wants to do business here?
Well, maybe we're a little bit too formal, and it's changing in Germany. But my husband's Canadian, and everybody at my embassy calls him Gary, and everybody calls me Frau Sparwasser. So there is a bit of a cultural difference. Yeah, I think we're loosening up in Germany, and the vous, the formal way, is quickly losing out. I would say there's another thing that I would advise Germans when they look at Canada, and that is look at the geography of Canada. I mean, you look at Germany and we're 350,000 square kilometers. Canada is 9 million kilometers. It's a very, very large country, and Toronto is not all of Canada.
No, that's a very good point. I mean, the entire country of Germany could fit into one of our ridings in Northern Ontario alone. So that is something.
Half the size of Baffin Island.
Well, there you go. So you find that you have to remind Germans about the vastness of Canada because that's something that would not occur to them?
When you do business, yeah. But on the other hand, when you talk to the population in Germany, there's a huge fascination with the vastness of Canada. And there are anecdotes. I mean, Chancellor Kohl asked Prime Minister Chrétien to fly him over the Arctic. And he sat in the plane and he had tears rolling down his eyes because of the sheer vastness of the land.
Interesting. Okay. Perhaps, Yvonne Dentz, you could give us some brand names that we would recognize when it comes to German companies operating in Canada. Who would we know?
Well, I'm sure you know all the car companies, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Porsche, Audi, Volkswagen. There's also, if you're in your kitchen and you turn around, you might see a Miele appliance, a kitchen, a dishwasher or a stove or a fridge. There is Siemens Canada, which is one of the biggest employers in Canada. They do automation and cybersecurity, smart grids, mobility solutions. There's
they make
SAP
subway cars
Canada.
and that kind of thing.
Exactly, they do, yeah, that as well. Then, of course, there's Airbus, who do just bought the plane from Bombardier. There's your consumer brands such as like Haribo, the gummy bears, Ritter Sport, the chocolate. There's a lot of different things. I'm going to stop here before I tell you too many.
Okay, well, tell me this, though. You know, I hear from Canadian business people all the time that this is sometimes a very difficult place to do business. The amount of regulation, the amount of taxation, I mean, I hear people complaining about this all the time. Based on the German experience and the experience of doing business in Germany, is Canada a more difficult or easier place to do business than Germany?
I think it's about the same. Like I hear from the German industry here, they're very happy here. They feel welcome. They feel accepted as Canadian companies, actually. Of course, there's red tape, but there's red tape in Germany as well. There's bureaucracy in both countries. It's very similar. Of course, once in a while, there's a company that runs into smaller issues that we, together with the embassy, try to help. But in general, they're very happy here.
Ambassador, is this still too difficult a place? Too many regulations? Too cumbersome a place for Germans to do business?
Well, I think we do find red tape, and in particular, there's one thing that I find that strikes us coming from the EU, trade borders between provinces. I find that is a hard one to explain. On the other hand, it takes a lot less time in Canada to create a business than it takes in Germany. So I think we can both learn from each other and try and get some of that red tape out of the way.
Ambassador, let me follow up with this, because during the summertime, I spent a bit of time in Northern Ontario, and invariably, in the tiniest places, I will run into people from Germany. Do Germans, I mean, is the Canadian wilderness well known in Germany as a place to come visit?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Canada is the dreamland for Germans if they think about emigrating from Germany. Canada and Australia are the dreamlands. Germans are extraordinary tourists. They go anywhere. Wherever you go, you will find Germans. And in particular, nature, sort of nature where you have that feeling it's not touched by too many people, coming from our small but highly populated country, is very, very coveted.
But you do have the Black Forest in Germany, right? The Schwarzwald. I mean, you know something about beautiful nature. So I'm still always surprised when I find so many people from Germany in Northern Ontario. I always wonder why that happens.
Well, we do, but we used to have many Canadians in the Black Forest when they were still a military base. And whenever I go around Canada, I meet all of these Canadians telling me fondly about their time in Germany. That's another good connector for us.
Gotcha. Yvonne Dentz, tell me this. Obviously, both countries would like to see an expansion of the relationship. What areas might there be opportunities for expanding either business or tourism, trade, whatever?
Well, tourism, just now that the borders are open, we already see an uptake in tourism again. So please go and visit beautiful Germany, or for the Germans, come in and visit the Canadian wilderness or also the cities. For the trade relationship, I see opportunities in the space of energy. So hydrogen is going to be a big topic in the next coming years. There is an opportunity to collaborate on artificial intelligence. I think the shared values of our both countries can help us really drive an ethical and sustainable use of AI. And the other one I would mention is green supply chains. With the vast majority of minerals here in Canada, there's an opportunity to make your supply chain greener.
All right, let me ask the ambassador one final question, and that is, you know, we've been very accustomed to seeing Mutti at the helm of Germany for the last decade and a half. And of course, Angela Merkel is about to leave at some point when you get your new government organized. How sure can we be that the new government of Germany will have as good relations with Canada as the previous government did?
Well, Germany has voted, and the only result that was clear was Angela Merkel is not running anymore. And I know that we've received a lot of nice, good wishes from Canadians who all admired her. Having said that, the new government that is still being established right now, we have negotiations. You know, in Germany, it's always coalition government that is being established. And we have basically four parties who are trying to figure out how to build a coalition, from the Conservatives, the Social Democrats, to the Liberals and the Green Party. It is quite likely that there will be a three-way coalition. That's quite likely, and it's quite likely that the Social Democrats, as the largest party in the election, will be in the lead, and that their leader, Scholz, who's our finance minister right now, that Olaf Scholz might be chancellor. But there's still also the option that the Christian Democrats might lead it. Whatever the result of this negotiation will be, number one takeaway from the election is the extremes have been weakened, the parties of the middle have been strengthened. Number two is all of those four parties I just mentioned are parties of the middle, with a strong European dedication, a strong transatlantic dedication, and parties that will form stable and very reliable governments and be very good partners for Canada. I think Canada has only friends in Germany. It's going to be not a problem at all to have that change in government. But it still will be interesting because we will look for ways to work together more. And Yvonne has mentioned some very important ones on climate change. We will need to raise our level of ambition, and we will want to work together with Canada to establish higher targets in order to meet climate change. We want to create alliances of the like-minded. Olaf Scholz, the likely chancellor, has proposed a club of like-minded countries who have higher ambition on climate change. That is going to be an area we're going to want to work together. And in order to do that, we will look at Canada as a partner to help us produce green hydrogen, because Germany is going to be the biggest market. Canada could be one of the world's biggest producers. To look at natural resources, because we do not want to depend on unreliable countries. Canada is a very reliable country. So there is plenty of scope, there's plenty of low-hanging fruit in our relationship, and this is harvest time.
We will continue to watch it with great interest. Thank you, Ambassador Sparwasser and Yvonne Dentz, for joining us on TVO tonight. Tschüss.
Tschüss.
Cheers.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.